Morning, everyone. My name is Rob Carey, and I am a national transportation leader with Deloitte. I'm not an accountant. I'm not an auditor. I'm a civil engineer. I'm a licensed engineer in a couple states, and I'm also a licensed land surveyor. Prior to joining Deloitte, I spent 30 years at the Virginia Department of Transportation, where I was the Chief Deputy Commissioner for the last 4 years, but my background was in engineering, project development, project delivery, construction, and then maintenance operations, P3s, finance, anything a DOT does. At Deloitte, though, really am focused on, when you think of a DOT and an MPO or local government, often in transportation, they're swimming in data, right? There's just tons of data from all the sensors, the traffic counters, and Waze data, and you think of it all. But they're drowning for actionable information from that data. So we do a lot of work with data analytics, AI, generative AI, machine learning, those kind of things. We also do business systems modernization. We're currently working, as an example, with the Utah Department of Transportation to modernize all of their project development delivery systems to bring what's a mishmash of systems that I would, personal term, hook together with duct tape and baling wire into a comprehensive, cohesive delivery model that enables their employees and not a burden to them in what they do every day. And then the last piece that I work on is around organizational transformation. As every industry, transportation is not unique. Every industry in the world is faced with a digital tsunami. And are organizations' personnel ready for that change? Are their systems ready for that change? Their processes and procedures ready for that change? Those are the things that I work on. Today we've got a great panel of infrastructure. It's a broad term. I mean, it covers, in this case, healthcare and IT and Corps of Engineers and so forth. We also have an elected member up here. I think that will be a very unique insight to what we're going to talk about. But I've always said that delivering projects, especially on the public sector, but private sector holds the same, the credibility of an agency is built in small deposits every day by doing things without a hitch, delivering a project on time and on budget with good quality and meeting the expectations that people have for it. That credibility, you make huge withdrawals from their credibility bank by a project going way over budget or being late or not delivering what people expected. And I've always said, as people that are focused on infrastructure, that our job is to deliver those projects and frankly, to make very difficult things look easy. The public doesn't want to know all the details behind what was required to make that happen. They just want it to happen, and they want you to do that with quality, and they want you to get in, get out, and stay out so that they can get on with their regular life. That requires a lot of planning and insight as you do it. That's what we're going to talk about here some today. I'm joined again by an incredible panel that covers a wide array of specialties. So I'm going to ask each of them to introduce themselves and maybe say a few words about some of the things that they're working on, like a minute or two, to say about some of the big projects that they're doing and some of the things that they see as challenges and opportunities. And we've got a bunch of questions. We'll go through that as well, but we'll start here on the end.
Good morning. My name is Craig Carrington. I'm the Deputy for Project Management for the Nashville District, U.S. Army Corps of Engineers. We're located here in Nashville, just a couple of blocks up. We are here in the Nashville District. We're responsible for the watersheds of the Tennessee and Cumberland rivers. So my district stretches from Virginia through North Carolina, through northern Alabama on the Tennessee, ultimately flowing into the Ohio River, and then on the Cumberland, also flowing from kind of rural Kentucky through downtown Nashville, and then ultimately back into the Ohio, again in Kentucky. So we're watershed-based, and everything the Corps does goes back to water in some way, but we're also an economic development agency. So we've got a lot of stuff going on. We have a lot of flood mitigation projects that we work at the local level with cities and counties. We also have a couple of very large lock projects going on, Chickamauga Lock in Chattanooga, Tennessee, on the Tennessee River, and then Kentucky Lock, Lock Addition on Kentucky, Lock and Dam on the Tennessee River in Kentucky. Very large new lock construction projects that are probably the largest current construction in the Nashville District portfolio. Multi-year billion-dollar projects and lots of stakeholders and interest groups, but some of the topics we'll talk about go back to some of those fundamentals, no matter the size of scope, schedule, and budget. It's all the same.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, I am Megan Stacy. I work with the state of Tennessee. I'm an executive IT director for special projects. What special projects means are those high-risk projects that are potentially going to go over budget and out of scope and over timeline. The good news is that never happens, okay? Every project, especially with government, you're always under budget and you're always getting it done right. So really, it's an easy job. But currently, the project that I'm working on and I'm really excited about is that I'm working with the Department of Corrections. We are taking our paper records, our electronic health records. Well, we don't have electronic ones, we have paper records. So we are now turning those into an electronic health system, integrating with the different facilities within nearby to our prison systems. So it presents a lot of challenges, and I'm going to be excited about telling you some of the things that I have found that will make these types of projects successful.
Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Jerry Galou. I am Director of Facilities Management at Nashville General Hospital here in Nashville. A lot of the projects that we're currently working on range from small, replacing cath labs, obviously in the healthcare field, just put in a robot, and as basically the only safety net hospital, or as our CEO likes to say, the people's hospital, we are looking to expand and add clinics on the outside of the facility so we can reach people who don't have the ability because of the lack of infrastructure coming into the main hospital. So that's a long range where it's at the city right now. So it is a project that is going to take an enormous amount of resources and effort, to make it come true. But I tell you, it's sorely needed. Other projects we just put in a robot, a surgical robot. So that is, you get a grasp of what the challenges are in healthcare in staying relevant, for a smaller hospital. So.
Good morning, everyone. Okay. Morning, everyone. I'm Nora McClick. I'm from Hartsfield-Jackson Atlanta International Airport. I'm the director for airside, landside, cargo for planning and development. And so basically, I oversee all of the civil projects for the airside, which is anytime you're at the airport, your ramps, runways, taxiways, to include our roadway infrastructure surrounding the entire airport. So basically, we do capital projects all the way down to our basic maintenance projects. Some of the big things that we have going on right now is, although I oversee the civil one, we have a $1 billion project where we're widening one of our concourses while still maintaining the ability to still be the world's busiest airport, which is a tremendous challenge in itself. We closed down a few gates. We're actually constructing the terminal expansion elsewhere and trucking it in. So if you have an opportunity to go over to YouTube, you can see some really amazing videos of what we've been doing when it comes to that. And it's not something you typically see. It's very innovative, but it's really when we get down to talking about stakeholder and partnerships and being very innovative and collaborative in how we make things happen.
Thank you.
Yeah, good morning, everybody. My name is Jim Hagman. I'm the mayor of Spring Hill, which is a city 30 miles south of this area. It's a city of approximately 65,000 people, and in respect of time, we have all the above going on, to include, Jerry, a new hospital push. And so we'll talk about those later if there's time. But anyway, glad and blessed and honored to be on a team of civil servancy. And thank you for having us. Thank you, Ken, wherever you are, for having us and this very important topic. Thank you.
All right, thanks a lot. And I do, just a point of privilege here, I guess, as somebody that, I can't tell you how many times I fly through Atlanta. And, you know, I just want to say, you know, there's people have their opinions about it, but I think it's great. I mean, it's crowded because it's a busy airport. But you know what? I get through, my bag gets through, it works. And that's what I will say about it. It does work, and it's extraordinarily complex. So just take the opportunity to thank you for what y'all are doing. It's I get the challenge, and doing any kind of project to enhance something there. You know, you're changing the tires at 60 miles an hour because it still has to work while you do that. So anyway, so let's start out with that, really, with the airport, and that is. You know, how do you mitigate delays and impacts as you do these projects? What kind of things are you doing so that the user, me, who probably went through Atlanta at least 60 times, maybe 70 times last year, can do that without too much fuss?
Yeah, no, we always start with planning. Planning's a given, but where we really get down to the nuts and bolts of it is the focus on design. Design is everything when it comes to being able to get done what you want to get done and being able to do it successfully. We always focus on how to minimize the impact to our stakeholders as well as all of the passengers. There's over 100 million people that come through Atlanta every year, and so we're always focused in on how do we still make that flow happen. Delta, you know, Atlanta's the home to Delta Airlines. They have a big stake. We partner closely with them, but we always start with the design. We have our own in-house design team, but we have so much going on that obviously they can't handle it all. So we have design consultants that are on call. And the great benefit to that is it develops continuity. Because that's the big thing, is you do these type of projects. Some of them are rinse and repeat, but some of them, like I said, with our concourse widening, they're innovative and they're new. But being able to have an understanding of how we do things, how we move aircraft, what's our infrastructure. I mean, the airport goes back to over 80 years. We have some infrastructure that once we dig a hole, we may find something that's about 80 years old. We always have unknowns. The best we do to try to find them, we're always going to have an opportunity that we're going to come across something. The only thing we haven't found is a car when we've dug up the hole. So it's every opportunity. But having the continuity of the design team and going through the details and having historical databases. We have files that go all the way back to the beginning of the airport as far as we can find, and we go back and we research those to see what did we have. We actually do a lot of stakeholder engagement during design. We'll bring the airlines in. We have internal stakeholders, external stakeholders. We all sit at the table and we go through and we talk about what is the design, phasing for what I oversee to still be able to move all the aircraft that we move and try to minimize the impact. I always tell the airlines, it's going to be painful, but I'm going to try to reduce the pain as much as possible. And so there's a lot of focus in on that, but we really look at even constructability reviews. You know, while everything looks great on paper, sometimes when you get out into the field and you get ready to build it, it's not necessarily one and the same. So we extend the open invitation to our construction management teams, which we have internal as well, and we go through and we evaluate, can we build this? It looks great on paper, but does it really make sense? And a lot of times we can find that. We just had one recently where we're actually hardening the surface of a quarry. Which, I mean, anybody knows anytime we have rain, it turns into a swimming pool. That is a challenge in itself, and even though it may seem simple, it's probably one of our more complicated projects. But while everybody thought the phasing was going to be great and it worked, when we got into the construction of it, it wasn't as feasible as we thought it was going to be. So that's where we get down to talking about change management and how those things work out too.
Great, thank you. Megan, I wanted to go to you now. Because you're in the IT side of infrastructure and in government, I mean, I always think that it's one of the challenges there is just the procurement processes in government are there for good reason, very good reason, competition and a level playing field for everyone. But also with the rate of technology change, it can be challenging too to make sure that the technology's not outstripping the pace of procurement. So I just wanted to ask a little bit about how you all deal with that and how you make sure that your projects are on the cutting edge of where you want them to be.
All right, so, what I have found, I mean, over my 20 years of doing projects in both private and public sector, is that usually when we decide we want to do a project, we want it yesterday. It doesn't matter what type of project. And a lot of projects, especially in the IT world, they take several years. Technology is constantly improving and it's changing, and you have to be realistic about what you're actually wanting. So with the state of Tennessee, we have a very specific procurement process. And what I have found with the projects I've worked on is being real about what's actually going to happen. If you want a project to be done in 4 years, expect to take about 25% of that time to prepare a really nice RFP that's going to tell exactly what you need. Because many projects will fail because you get into the project, you didn't identify 25% of what you needed, you're getting out of scope, you're running out of time. And a lot of the projects that we have deadlines of when we have to utilize funds. And even if you're in the private sector, you have the same thing because budgets change every year. And then you're 2 years into a project and you have to scrap it because there's some other initiative that becomes more important. So we don't have the skills or the resources or individuals that necessarily know how to go through this really detailed discovery process before you get started. So we really focus on that. We bring partners in who are exceptional at identifying that. We make sure that there's no bias. So we have specific protocols in place that ensure that they look through all of our proposals, that every item is solved for, and that we're putting the right types of incentives and I'll say de-incentivize if we get behind on our projects. I mean, everything does not necessarily go perfect. However, it's managing as you're going through this RFP process, just ensuring you have every single stakeholder. I've had some projects where we get 95% there, and we realize that a very important stakeholder hasn't been involved. So identifying exactly what you're wanting to do, how long you want to do it, and preparing for it is critical. And it's something I believe that from an IT perspective, the state is improving on. We've still got a lot of work. I don't think there's anyone who does perfect projects. If they do, please let me know, because it's hard to do in the IT world. Everyone kind of gives IT a hard time, but putting a structure in place the way that we have, I believe, really, really makes a difference.
Yeah, great, thank you. Now I want to go over to Jim. They always say all politics is local, and there's nothing more local than being the mayor, right? I mean, you get to see it all. So what was your big infrastructure project and some lessons learned from that?
Thank you, Rob. So I mentioned to Jerry that Spring Hill, the great city of Spring Hill, we have on the plans and a push and a lobby to build a hospital in Spring Hill, but there's a lot that goes into any project. Sometimes they take months, sometimes they take years, sometimes they take decades. And patience is a virtue, certainly, that has to be persistent in whatever it is and whomever it is plans a project. And when you pass the baton, that has to be accomplished as well, the accomplishment of patience. But we, the city of Spring Hill, just recently had a ribbon cutting, being within the last 2 months, of a new interchange on Highway 65. That project was north of $55 million, and we're proud to have that. That project came in the reason is for two things. One is because the old cliche is if you build it, they will come. So that interchange was built in the middle of a 775 acre planned development. So there's no housing there now. However, we are going vertical with some things, but there's many things that are planned for that, and planning of it is certainly the infrastructure that we have to include IT. And I am not one of those people that everyone hates IT. I thank you, IT, because we need your services all the time. Thank you.
You're rare.
Okay, but the other reason for that interchange to occur is because the infrastructure that we have in the city is insufficient in areas, and one of them specifically is how you get around town, how you get around the city, i.e. roads. And so that interchange is, besides it being an economic development driver, it is also a relief mechanism for the main corridors that we have in our city, and it is already working, and so we're thankful for that. But partnerships are incredibly important. I've been the mayor for 3.5 years, and in my tenure, I was able to cut the ribbon, so to speak, but I didn't start this project. But I am well aware, so my encouragement to everybody here on stage as well as in the audience is to be patient and to be involved in the planning of whatever it is needs to occur. And in this case, I came along as the caboose, but I'm thankful to the IT people that planned, to all the people that had visions to make something that did happen occur. And so proud to have that interchange again, 55+ million, and 25 million of that, part of the planning of that is to get federal money. So they contributed 25 million towards that plan, and there's a lot of rules and regulations, ordinances and resolutions that have to happen in accordance with all of that. But in the interest of time, I could take the whole time, but anyway, one of our biggest things is that we just completed the interstate change on Highway 65 at June Lake Boulevard. Thank you.
Great, thank you. All right, next I want to go to Jerry. And in the healthcare setting, it's talked about like improvements in Atlanta and keeping people moving, right? In the healthcare setting, the hospital has to keep treating you. It's a life and death situation for people, and as you do projects within that setting, you're probably extraordinary levels of cleanliness outside the work site, all these kind of things that could spill over. But so when you undertake these things, what are some of the lessons you've seen in delivering these projects within a hospital setting that translate really across all different settings, but obviously you're doing some big projects there, and I'd love to hear from that.
All right, well, as we all know, your executive comes down and says, I want this shiny new toy, and I want it yesterday. So for us, it's the initiation phase. You have a project life cycle. So talking out and bringing in all the stakeholders, identifying all the problems that may happen. If you don't take care of those things in the very beginning, and that goes with, ICRA plans, infection control plans to make sure that, because you're working inside an active hospital, within healthcare. So everything else still has to function, and you can't impede progress. We just did a no-wait ED, minor, but we changed the workflow, brought everybody in to see how can we get patients in so that they're not sitting in a waiting room for 15 minutes. Now they walk in, they register, they go in the back to see a provider. So they're there for 3 to 4 minutes. That just rolled out, but a lot of it has to do with how you plan, and I can't emphasize enough planning. You all mentioned planning, much bigger infrastructure and such that you're dealing with, but when you're dealing with people, you have to think it out, and you need data. Everybody talks about data. You need how many people are coming through. What's the return on investment? How is it going to affect the operation of the organization? I mentioned we did a robot. Well, that required shutting down an operating room. So we only have 9 operating rooms, so shutting down one is a big deal. You just have to plan accordingly your patient loads and such, and making sure that people can get in and out of the facility, unimpeded. The vendors can come do what they have to do, without causing any risk, which is a whole nother topic you could talk long about. But the key is just involving everybody in the hospital. Even if you don't think, let them say, nope, this doesn't affect me. Because if you don't, then it's just, as the other phases of a project come into line, and you start bringing your project managers and your construction crews in, it's going to affect them. You know, and to your point, you had an incident where, well, someone didn't raise their hand and say, this is going to affect me. And now you got to scramble. So again, I think just adding people to the mix is the big takeaway for us.
Yeah. All right. Great. And Craig, the Corps of Engineers, I mean, does I think incredible projects that are key to the quality of life for people. I mean, there's huge swaths of this country that are protected because of the work you've done that otherwise would seasonally flood and things like that. I mean, I used to live in Richmond, and there's a big flood wall in Richmond that protects the downtown, really. Really impressive projects. So when you undertake these, and these are long-term, very impactful when you're actually constructing them because of the scope and scale of what's involved, really, what are some of the biggest challenges you see in doing those projects, and how has the Corps worked to overcome them really in the Nashville district, but also nationally?
Yes, thank you for that. You know, scale is important, I guess. All of the challenges that we all face are really universal and the same, and the Corps is dealing at a different scale of some of those challenges. The Corps is about 40,000 employees. We're stationed in about 39 countries around the world, doing projects in about 110 some odd countries. So the scale of our program is very large. Over the last few years, Congress and other agencies have really asked a lot of the Corps. We've got a historic program. So that just kind of speaks to the scale. But coming down to the actual challenges, it's the same that many of you face. We're dealing in an environment where, coming out of COVID, prices are unpredictable. We've got suppliers and fabricators that will give you a price till the end of the day. So how do you plan for that? I have customers, and as you mentioned, we've got projects at that local level that they have a lot of interest and a lot of stakeholders, but I may be funded by the United States Congress. And they have a schedule, they have requirements, and sometimes getting those aligned is another funding challenge. And then as someone's already mentioned, you know, our procurement processes in the federal government can be a type of challenge. But some of the local challenges that we have faced have been people. We have a workforce challenge in the Corps and in the Nashville district. Our historic model of people retiring from the Corps in Nashville with 40 years of service is no longer. People are moving more. We have to focus more on the challenges of people, experience, and knowledge. And then kind of focusing on those challenges with our partners, you know, with those manufacturers, with the construction industry, getting out, hearing from them and talking about how they would do things maybe different than the Corps would do, but maybe it's just as good or better. So some of the challenges, again, of predictability, of cost, of experience, or you know, another challenge here and specific to the Tennessee region is we had more cranes in the sky here in Nashville for about a decade than a lot of places, and they didn't need Corps work. You know, there was different types of work that they were more interested in. So that challenge of, again, attracting those contractors and communicating well with them is one of the solutions. But the challenge, again, is getting people interested in coming and working for the Corps and doing Corps work.
Yeah, I was one of the projects that we had undergone in Virginia that when I left, it was probably a year and a half underway, was a twin bored tube tunnel in the Hampton Roads area to widen Interstate 64. And I think about the scale and my involvement on that project. We were using stainless steel because of the marine environment for corrosion protection of tunnels going in the water for forever, basically. I'm not aware of too many tunnels in this country that have ever been taken out, maybe expanded, but we're going to use 25% of that particular type of stainless steel produced in the United States for that project. And then you think, how does that influence the procurement? What's that mean for your contractors and that kind of thing? So one of the things I come back to and just say that, you know, how have you used innovation to improve on project delivery and infrastructure across the Corps?
Great point. Innovation is really important, especially in this age. Some of those challenges I talked about, but innovation for the Corps, we are partially lucky. We have several labs in the Corps of Engineers that really focus on some of those types of innovation, especially in the engineering and construction, you know, arenas. But innovation for the Corps, you know, starts fundamentally with the way that we approach these problems. We've got to be more nimble. We've got to be more responsive. We've got to be more open-minded with our partners on solutions, type of approaches, and that kind of thing. But in the technology arm, there's a lot of some of the software that helps us lay out our schedule, scopes, and budgets. So in the communication realm, you know, some of that fidelity of schedule is part of that communication that gives confidence to our funders or confidence to our stakeholders and partners, but also our contractors, that we've got a laid out plan that they feel confident being a part of and bidding on. But then there's a lot of interesting innovation going on in some of our labs. Additive manufacturing, also known as 3D printing, really interesting things going on in that arena. We have locks and dams all over this country that have a lot of parts involved with that, gears and arms and gates. And what if you could kind of flip the idea of going to a manufacturer and having something made and fabricated and delivered? What if you could do some manufacturing of small components on site? You know, there's some thought there. Some of the structurally reinforced plastics we're seeing are as strong as any steel parts, very appropriate for certain, I guess, components or repairs. A lot of augmented reality for inspections. We have a lot of infrastructure that you can't just walk up and see sometimes. We've got locks that are underwater, and it's extremely disruptive and expensive to dewater just to do an inspection. So some of the innovative camera work and some of those things are just a few of the examples.
Yeah, and as somebody that had responsibility for very old movable bridges and things like that, finding parts where you're literally on eBay trying to find something somewhere for an engine to make the bridge actually open that was built in 1928. You know, it's a challenge. So maybe the 3D printing, we should have been looking at that harder. Norma, I wanted to go back to you, and obviously you have a massive undertaking all the time, and there's going to be change. There's going to be change management that's important to that. And I just want to ask, like, how do you handle changes that come up? How do you do that in a way that minimizes the disruption, minimizes the costs? Because, you know, when those changes come up, inevitably, sometimes you have contractors that see it as an opportunity.
Oh,
and,
without question, yes.
And how do you deal with that to try to protect you're a city-owned
Yes, we
entity,
are. We
right?
are-
So
we
to
are owned by
protect
the city of
taxpayers
Atlanta.
of the city and users of the airport.
Yeah, as much as we'd like the design to be perfect, the reality is it's not, and there's always going to be something that's going to happen. If nothing else, unforeseen things you're going to come across. And while, yes, sometimes we do have those that like to take advantage, one of the perks, I guess, that we've had is we've got a circle of contractors. It's not easy working at that airport, and it's not easy working under a city contract. So those that come, they typically get used to our process and they stay. It's always a challenge for those that come the first time, but we always, we want to see as many different contractors that come. Complacency is never a good thing. But nonetheless, we have some that really work well with us. They have a long history there. We partner with contractors. You know, sometimes people are like, oh no, it's them and us. We try to make the culture of, we're in this together. We want them to be successful, so then we get a successful project and everybody wins out of it. But the reality is, yes, there's always going to be change. We're always going to come across something. All of our contracts, we add owner contingency. We typically do 10% to any contract we have. That is our standard process. Now, if a change comes about, we scrutinize it, we scrub it, we have estimators look at whatever the contractor's submitting. We have times that we're like, we can't get on board with this, but we've got to get the work done. At the end of the day, it has to happen. It's just how do we come to an agreement as to what that cost should be. We've tracked sometimes on time and materials, and then there's sometimes we've had the luxury of going, okay, we've got some time, we can evaluate this. We sit down with the contractor, we sit down and we go through it. We look at, are there better ways to do this? And sometimes we come back and go, no, we're going to go down this path, but we've changed, we're going to go down this path. And it's all about still continuing to move forward, but always minimizing the cost for any changes that happen.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. And Jim, as you said, that's a big project that you all were part of there, and I know you have a lot of other projects you do. But as you think about like that project and others in delivering, thinking about like some of the virtues that are important to have in delivering those type of projects, and a couple of things that you think are absolute must to be successful in delivering projects from your perspective and your history in dealing with the projects.
Yes, absolute must. Okay, thank you for the question, Robin. By the way, the crane is the new Tennessee state bird. But anyway, it's a joke.
You do know
crane.
that there's actually something called a crane index that talks about city by city the number of cranes in the sky, about the amount of growth and construction going. It's a thing. It's a data point that you can find and people study to make sure that they know where business is going.
Data point today, I tell you that, but anyway. So, all of us, I believe, in this room is here to learn about infrastructure, or to be encouraged about infrastructure, is somehow involved in the infrastructure. My fellow panelists, Rob, and y'all in the room here. In my experience, and I'm retired Air Force, I'm an aviator. There's rumor in Spring Hill that we're going to build an airport. That's a rumor. And besides a hospital, Jerry. But I'm retired from the Air Force, and then I was in higher ed in Vanderbilt University, that's just down the road here for 17 years, and I actually worked at Nashville General Hospital, plug for Nashville General Hospital, a great safety net hospital in this country. In all of my experience, when I was just a front row staff member to now in the chief suite as a CEO of a city, one thing that I have learned sometimes through formal education by going to conferences like this, sometimes through self-study, sometimes through the School of Hard Knocks, is that a must that you should incorporate in all of the things that you do, especially with regards to projects, is relationships. And relationships are incredibly important because we get in, I think that's our human nature puts us in silos that we judge a book by its cover. And when you do that right away, you probably are losing that relationship because we got a big election, a national election going on right now, and both sides, they have good things about them and they have bad things about them. So you need to decide, what you want to do. But in all projects that you have, there are good things that, regardless of that, a frontline staff person or somebody in the chief suite, a supervisor, manager, or middle manager, or senior manager, that man or that woman in that position has a story, and that story gives you an opportunity to tap into that story to help perpetuate the project, what it is. Not on a false base like, hey, how you doing, who cares, really, but on a real sincere basis, because everybody in this room, regardless of your ethnicity, regardless of your socioeconomic status, what tax bracket you're in, regardless of what your position is in the company, you came up through the ranks in something, and never forget where you're at. And part of that perpetuation is establishing and maintaining the relationships. And that all plans out in the end because you want your project delivered, the deliverables, or whatever it is, everybody wins. And so when that person, that man or that woman, or whatever capacity that they're in, walks away from the job, or even comes to the job, they say, you know what, I get to go to work today versus, oh, I have to go to work today. And you can influence that by having positive relationships, which contributes to the infrastructure, and in my case, the will of the citizens. Yeah. Anyway, thank you.
Yeah, thank you. And just one last question. I wanted to go back to Megan. And, we talked about rapid change, and you mentioned sort of within the government organization, do you have the skill sets and so forth to do all of the things that you need to do? And technology is rapidly changing. Even for people in technology, it's tough for them to keep up with everything. So how do you try to keep everybody current, make sure that your organization is aware and knowledgeable of what's happening, and to be ready, just briefly, on making sure you can do the right things for Tennessee?
Well, I mean, I'm going to go back to the partnerships and the relationships. So, a good thing about the state is that we do have a lot of employees that have been around for a very long time and in the technology area. We have programs that we offer to our employees to allow them to learn about new technologies, to certify in new technologies, to keep their education knowledge relevant to today's landscape. We partner with vendors where they will come, they come in and they'll help train and prepare us and educate us. And a lot of that education process actually happens before we ever start projects. You can't go into something not knowing anything about it. So I think that's what we do right, is that we educate our team members, and then where we have our gaps, we bring in consultants, we bring in SMEs that can actually come in and do it right. Because at the end of the day, it's taxpayer money.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Well, I think that's all the time we had for questions. I want everybody to give her a big round of applause. A great panel. Thank you very much.